I want to challenge those who are sponsoring, orchestrating, funding this violence to step forward and give us their alternative views on how to take Kenya forward.
I think it is wrong for us to not consider some positions to them so that they might show us another way of doing things. You know, I mean, as I sit and I talk to them, I know that the passion that they have within is because of unemployment and lack of opportunity. They have a different way of dealing with situations than we do as their parents.
They must not remain anonymous. They must not remain formless or faceless. They must step forward.
They cannot remain leaderless and faceless. They have to come out and say, these are the people we're recommending for these ministries, and let the president consider them. And I really pray that together we can make a difference to not just Kenya, but the region.
It's unprecedented. It has never happened. Can we heal so that the country heals?
I therefore want to congratulate the president for the appointment, but request the president that within the week, as soon as tomorrow, we want to see those other appointments Baba was to forward to him.
Mr. Speaker, what the president announced is definitely different from what you have read to us. Mr. Speaker, at that point alone, the public will not really have confidence in what we are doing, unless probably the president came and first of all made the changes. He has the ability to do that. But what the public knows of the people we are going to vet is actually what he announced.
Taifa linapelekwa na sheria. Kwa hivyo wewe hata kama una uwezo, una mbinu na hikma kuingia mahakamani kuharibu, lakini kwanza waulize wale wananchi, je, hili jambo nyinyi mnalihitaji?
All right. That is a soapbox, of course, just indicating what was happening yesterday. And just to remind you as well, the media will be on the street as well today. And this is all about the latest attack on media that has been ongoing. And as you can see it here, Kenya Kwanza Serious Crimes Unit, this is just what is there. Free Media, Fourth Estate, right? And also Residents Republic of Kenya. That is offense informing accurately and objectively. And this is case number 23rd of 07-2024, as has been depicted by Victor Duale. Today, all the media houses will be on the streets to demonstrate as well peacefully. That is what we have in the Daily Nation today. And of course, we were discussing this before we took a short break. Very interesting editorial cartoon there on the pitch, where we have the swapping of the t-shirts, right, as far as the game of football is concerned. And this is a game now of the cabinet musical chairs as it stands right now, right? We could see some of the names that were mentioned and pronounced by the president also missing. They were not forwarded to the National Assembly. And this is the latest that we have, that we know. So Ipantuya has been moved to the Ministry of Defense, and now Eden Duale will be going to plant trees in the Ministry of Environment. That is the ozone in the Star today. And first half cabinet reshuffle, right? That seems to be going up in smoke. I don't know. That is what Stano has drawn today inside the People Daily. And it has lifted off. It is up in the skies right now. Paris, here we come. That is Team Kenya and the Olympics, as well as drawn by Gams inside the Standard today. But back to that editorial cartoon as we were discussing it before we took a short break. I want to hear also from Dr. Ken Obongi and Dr. Hassan Kaneje.
Okay, thank you, Diba. I think the beginning premise on this one ideally should be, it's true that the president has a prerogative of constituting his cabinet. And he appoints those individuals he thinks will help him to deliver on his promises, to deliver on his campaign pet subjects and all that. Nobody will take away that from President Ruto. But what we have seen in recent months is something probably we have never seen in the history of the development of the disciplined forces in the country. I think for the first time, the military seems to be overly exposed, and mixed up in our day-to-day politics, which is not very normal. Here in Kenya and also elsewhere. If you look at even the developed world, the military are removed from the day-to-day politics of a country. This is a very disciplined force, and in Kenya, I think comparatively with many other countries in the continent of Africa, our military are the most disciplined. There's no doubt about that. These men and women in uniform have served, in different peacekeeping missions in the world, and have done a splendid job. If you see around the world when the UN is talking about a peacekeeping force, I think the Kenyan military always ranks somewhere at the top as the most likely to be chosen if they have to choose a force from the global south. That's why we are saying that it is true that the president has the prerogative, but we have to proceed with a bit of caution when we are dealing with the military. Ideally, yes, there is a Ministry of Defense, but there is a way in which the military is an independent body. It's a professional group. Which has very clearly established rules on what happens when and how that is executed. I think we should be able to respect that. Perhaps the change that the president made, and I'm using the word perhaps quite strongly, is informed by the character and the idiosyncrasies of the individuals involved. Honorable Duale, comes across as a very strong-willed politician, a man who will want to have his way or go the highway if it's not his way. And the papers are talking about that of a bearing character. It's not by creation. And such an individual cannot operate very well with the generals in the military, because the military is an independent entity and they have their own way of doing things. Perhaps the perspective where the president is coming from is that he needed an individual who is fairly safe hands on the side of the military, who doesn't cause a lot of jittery and a lot of heat in these disciplined forces. Whether Honorable Soipan fits that bill, it will be yet to be seen. I respect what Professor Kawanja was saying earlier, but the point here is that, and I've said this in this forum, Diba, that we need to be very careful as a country when we are dealing with our disciplined forces, our men and women in uniform. Because history has shown us very clearly that the moment we tamper with the political innocence of this group of men and women, and the moment they move out of the barracks and head to the palace, they never go back. The moment they have tested power, the analogy I will use, I don't know whether it is suitable, is like a lion that has tested human blood. Yeah. It will never go back to eating wildlife. That's why in the wild out there, once a lion has tested human blood, what they do, they eliminate it, because it will become so sweet for it to go back to. So what I'm advocating is caution, is us being careful on how we are dealing with a group of men and women who know what they want when they want it, who know what to do and how to do it, and they are very highly respected around the world. The current situation does not look very impressive, if you ask me. But we need to be able also to respect the right of the president to choose the men and the women that he needs to choose in whichever docket that he has chosen them. But caution is very necessary.
All right. Let's hear from Dr. Kanenja.
Duale, peace diplomacy and environmental diplomacy are some of the key central pillars to Kenya's foreign policy, as a professor may know. And the reason is not just because they sound fancy, it's because Kenya, in terms of peace diplomacy, has demonstrated enviable success over the years, but also, and for those perhaps who are introducing themselves to Kenya, governance and politics for the first time, our military is perhaps not just the last best hope we have, is the most respected institution in this country that citizens across the board still actually owe respect to. They don't respect parliament, they don't have a lot of respect for executive, and this is not just about current executive, most executives in this country. And they have issues with the judiciary. But you've even seen in the streets, when they see military vehicles, even yesterday they were shouting, Jeshi, Jeshi, Jeshi. Why? What they're communicating is that that's the only institution that actually they still respect. And therefore, whoever is going to serve in that docket must be a man or woman beyond reproach, but must also be a man or woman with the type of humility that allows him or her to understand what they don't understand. And therefore, to let people who've been trained to do what they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. So we cannot, for instance, interfere with the works of the military. And as civilians, we can oversight, but we know the reporting channels with the military. The commander-in-chief is not exactly the minister or the PS. Yeah. And so, of course, then the president has a prerogative to decide a number of things, but also, at the same time, he's a civilian who will need, of course, to listen to what the military says. And I must add, if we, in fact, expanded and mainstreamed on military to national development, I think we'll go much further. And just as exemplified by some of the experiments that were done in the dying years of the Uhuru administration, by the works, for instance, of General Badi, or the way we gave certain sectors to the military, and you saw how they were able to transform things that took the city council 30 years not to be done, were done in 1 year, under General Badi. And that just tells you not just the capacity, but the excellent credibility and competence of a military. And so the man or woman who has to serve in that place has to be beyond reproach. Number two, the environmental diplomacy, which is an environmental pillar in terms of foreign policy, is key. Now, under this presidency, environment and climate agenda has been at the core of President Ruto's presidency. And globally, he's pretty much emerged as a leader from the global south, actually on the climate agenda. Many countries have paid attention, especially from the global north, on Kenya, in large part because of the president's effort and Kenya's efforts with the climate agenda. Now, what that means is, as a country in the global south, as a country which is one of the fifth or sixth largest economy on the continent, if this in fact is one of our marketing and selling points out there, then we also need to have someone who is actually competent to be able to do it. Just as we need someone competent within the Ministry of Defense, we need someone extremely competent and qualified with a background, but also with the gravitas to be able to negotiate within larger settings. One of the challenges we have had with sometimes our either bureaucrats or our ministers, over the years, sometimes we send people to places where they have no idea. And all they have to go there is drink tea or party and do other things without working. Two, we've had situations where people don't even know how to contribute to discussions that actually affect national security and national interest of Kenya. And so, as we move towards reconstituting government, in part because of the kind of demands, justifiably so, that are coming from Kenyans, we really need to put our national interests at the heart of every calculation. If we can get that right, I don't think there are going to be other Gen Z's movements, you know, in the coming years, because we will be able to solve some of the problems we're having once and for all. But if, whether it's parliament or private sector or political opposition, if we're being driven by parochial interests and village politics, then we're going to find ourselves back to where we are today, which is unfortunate, because right now, the country's at crossroads, and we have to look ourselves in the mirror and see, do we really like the image we're seeing there? Today, just the other day, Kenya was the headlines of every good thing. Today, in all international media, Kenya is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Really, we need to be ashamed, and we need to change course.
All right. Professor Kagwanja, maybe just looking at also the docket of defense there, it's not the first time that it's been held by a woman. Before, we've had Rachel Mamo, we've had Ambassador Monica Juma as well on that particular docket. And this is not really surprising that they could not really perform. So if we've not seen her now in her element in this particular docket, from your own estimate, we were asking a probing question. Do you think also this is snugly fitting for Soipan? This particular docket?
Well, let's first of all, I wouldn't want to put it in the right of any personality, because it is possible to discuss defense with the gravitas that it has, in the sense that...
But just as we discussed that Duale is overbearing as it's being put in the
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile underlining that the topic that you're talking to is at the heart of our very existence, given that security and sovereignty are the core to our existence. Everything else comes after that. And therefore, when you're making a deliberate comment, as you are urging me to make, then I'll have to do. I'm not afraid.
No. But isn't this the process of vetting? Because these are the probing questions that will be asked when you go to the National Assembly.
That's what we're saying.
Why would you be greatly shy to comment?
No, I'm not shying to comment. No. I'm not at all. I just wanted to underline what my brother here said, Khanenje, about the military. When it came out yesterday, and worked the streets and confronted Jay-Z, what did you see? Total admiration.
Yes.
Total admiration. It's like people, they are cheering an incoming prince or king. What does that tell you? That up to this point, Kenya has huge respect for the military. Huge respect for the military. Even those of us who, from time to time, have had the privilege to consult civilians in their area, or to be party to their system, one of the things we do, we humble ourselves. And we humble ourselves because we are meeting a very orderly, perhaps the most orderly space in our society. So we also kowtow to that order and respect it as it is supposed to be respected. Why am I using this long preface? Because the debate we are going to have about the occupant, the future occupant of this docket, might begin to tarnish the reputation that I have outlined before. I say so because I am aware. I've been in this docket for now almost 15 years, working on this docket. And I know some of the things. And I expected the leaders also to borrow a leaf from the experience in the past. You may be good, and the public might like you. You might be very close to the powers that be. But when the military are not comfortable with your ability to adjust to the whole machinery of discipline, then it brings, and we have seen changes before that were not welcome, because not that the person is even overbearing. We are not talking about the overbearing character. And non-overbearing, like taking you something too much, when you are supposed to leave, you are not leaving. When you are supposed to stay, you are not staying. The military will not tolerate that. So and the sense that discipline And if there is one space where you are supposed to be as above suspicion as the proverbial Caesar's wife, this is one space. And therefore, when we come to vetting of the nominees to this docket, or the nominee to this docket, I think we need to be very, very, very careful how we go about it. And I'm saying this in the light of what is appearing in social media. The social media is not very kind. So even before the vetting begins, and I don't want to be the one to bell the cat, even before the vetting begins, social media is angry. With that respect, it even appears that it would have been easier for Duale to stay than for those who are coming in to stay, given the space we are talking about in our country. And that's why from the beginning I said, humbly, it is important when we are talking about a country that is 61 years old, with a history, and you can add to that another 67 years of British rule, as the military is emerging, and now you can begin to see the kind of parameters you have to make decisions, because we are not creating a new country. We are building on or improving on what we have inherited. So, is what we are now recommending an improvement on what we have, or are we going back decades from what we have built? I would argue that we are going decades back, and it is not good for our country.
All right. Maybe we can also try and see, because this is not really the final list, we wonder if maybe the same sentiments will be expressed at the National Assembly. I don't know what will be the reaction at the end of the day. And even if we have calls regarding some of the dockets and the appointees there, people are saying we don't have a National Assembly, because now that has become a rubber stamp of the executive as it is right now. So even if there will be questions raised at the end of the day, the president's arm will hold sway. Dr. Kanyanja?
Yes and no. I think there's also new realities in town. And the new realities in town is that perhaps members of parliament need to take personal responsibility for the kind of decisions they're going to make. Now, that essentially and constitutionally is what they're supposed to be doing. Now, with regard to whipping a party to vote a certain line, this is something that has been going on for some time, and it happens in many democratic countries where you're going to find votes that are normally follow the party line. It happens in the United States, save for sometimes a few dissenting voices that you may have from Vermont, or elsewhere, who are kind of independent, minded persons. But by and large, this is not exactly something that is new, even though someone may accuse the executive of weakening parliament as such. Now, it becomes a challenge. I think where it becomes a challenge is when there are claims that members of parliament are being influenced to vote in a way that is less than transparent. Of course, those claims are yet to be substantiated, and they've been back and forth with regard to arguments with regard to what happened, whether people got 2 million shillings to vote or not. But I think there's a recognition in the country that parliament needs to do the right thing. Now, not every parliamentarian is a bad apple, but the truth is a lot of parliamentarians over the years have been less than pleasant and less than honorable, not just in how they performed in parliament, but even how they got into that parliament to start with. And so what has turned out is the country has not gotten its best into parliament. And of course, the result of not getting your best into parliament, you can always see it. Of course, a lot of parliamentarians may probably kill me on this, but if we have to look at ourselves genuinely and honestly, when we realize we've fallen short, we were able to approve a lot of people, both at the county assembly, for governors, and for members of parliament, who could not have met the really basic standards of actually qualifying to even serve there. And so I think in the coming days, parliament need to do the right thing. The president who is going to nominate people, that is his prerogative. Elections have consequences, and he won the election, and therefore he is given that choice to be able to make to exercise it. But the Parliament and, of course, also the public, they have a say. And this is going, I think, to be seen in the next, couple of days or in the next, couple of weeks with regard to more information coming out in relation to the nominees that the President would have put forth. I would not like to castigate people before I think complete information, of course, comes out, because then that is really making a judgment without giving people a fair hearing or seeing, because there could be claims of corruption on some people, but what if those claims are being driven by malice? And once they start being vetted, then all information should come out. Now, in the event that there is this adverse mentioning and associations with corrupt practices or malfeasance by some of the nominees, then of course we expect that action is going to be taken by Parliament not to approve them. Then the President can always forward another name. But if they approve persons with highly questionable character and past, then that may not exactly calm the kind of situation and the kind of angst that we are seeing among Kenyans across the board. And this, what is being experienced is not just about the Gen Z. Now, the Gen Z make up about half of the country's population. I think it's important for us to realize that. But it's also something that has been seething, even among the older generation, and there is a sense of desperation. Part of the reasons why Kenyans have not been voting in large numbers, honestly, is because of apathy. It's not just about thinking of that election is going to be stolen, is that even if it's not stolen, it will not really change my life. And we have to demonstrate, I think, going forward as leadership, that we take our work seriously. We are servants, we're not lords over our constituents and over the citizens.
Right.
Maybe I may add, there are two dimensions to this DIPAL on the most likely scenarios that will play out in Parliament during the vetting of the names that the President gave. The first scenario is what Dr. Hanenche is calling the new realities in town. The agencies have actually brought in a new dimension that was not characteristic of us. You remember that after the voting of the finance bill, subsequently a few MPs were visited in quotes, and they were greeted in quotes. Not many of them right now actually visit their constituencies as they used to do. If you go to Parliament, probably the claims they used to make of money for visiting constituencies, that has not been done, I think, in the last couple of weeks or in the past 1 month. And also we have seen some of them who have become unnecessarily apologetic and exuded rare humility, which we don't associate with being a Kenyan politician or a Kenyan member of Parliament, because the office in some way comes with some level of very fabulous and opulent life, from the cars they drive, from the life they live, and they have a nice package, which of course they claim to share with their constituents. So with such a kind of development, and if anybody cared about his or her political career, I foresee a situation where we are going to have real vetting in the country for the first time. But then, Dibal, and this is the second dimension, sometimes it's very difficult to teach old dogs new tricks. And I'm not calling our MPs dogs, I'm just using an expression. So sometimes these expressions are gotten wrongly. I'm saying it's very difficult to teach new things to a group of people who are used to a certain kind of life. We have had, accusations of bribery before. We have had situations where apparently a few of them disappear from the chambers, purportedly going to the bathroom, I don't know what they do there, when crucial motions are being debated in Parliament. I guess if what is in the public domain is anything to go by, some of them are heavily indebted, and they still need to quote-unquote grease the bit to be able to service their loans and do all that thing. So if that is the case, then the old situation is going to be replayed back, where they will kowtow unnecessarily to the executive and go by what the executive needs. And that will be, I think, very interesting and a bit too sad for our politics and for the Kenyan democracy. But away from the two dimensions, we actually need to be able to realize, and this is on the case of the president, that Kenya has changed in some fairly fundamental ways. We cannot use old tricks to handle the new situations that we have in our midst. And maybe it will be important, and I guess the president is moving towards that direction, for State House to actually leave the National Assembly to do their work. If they have any issues with certain names and certain individuals, then so be it. The president still has a prerogative to come up with new names. Mm-hmm. The unfortunate scenario that is unfolding is what we are seeing in social media, especially when it deals with a female nominee. Sometimes you wonder whether social media is being fair or unfair with the kind of information that is being spilled now in social media, which is very, very, very interesting. But we will only wait and see how Parliament is going to handle that. But as a nation also, now this is talking to the public, we probably need to work towards trying to respect some level of privacy. But then again, the counter-argument will be that when you have been chosen to serve in public, and then your life becomes an open book, and it will be scrutinized. I have had an opportunity to serve at some level in public, and a couple of times I saw my name in the media in not very good light. So you have to learn to actually cope with that.
Indeed. Even as we just wind up a bit on the cabinet appointments, because we have also a great divide within the Kenya Kwanza, or not really the Kenya Kwanza administration, but let's look at the Azimio la Umoja as it is, because of course this also threatens the stability of the country if they're not seeing eye to eye at the end of the day. And it seems they're the people now who are delaying the full constitution of this cabinet as it is, because the president is awaiting for them as well to profile names, and you can see what is happening with the ODM or Azimio as it stands right now. The names which have been floated and the slots that have been given, we've seen, I don't want to mention names, maybe I'll just use acronyms or abbreviations, like a JM has been, somebody has been forwarded as he will become the cabinet treasurer, right? We have also somebody in the National Assembly, both of them are in the National Assembly, who will maybe at some point rescind or forfeit his seat and go for the Ministry of Energy as it stands. And this is from one party of Azimio. Could we talk about this? I'm talking about the whole face of the cabinet in light of the face of Kenya. Because some of the names that are missing right now that have not been forwarded to the cabinet is in light of what people have been complaining, that this is not truly the face of Kenya. We can see there's a lot of, faces that is coming from one region of the country, and yet we have a quest to have, the face of Kenya as it stands right now. Now, given that we have some members of Azimio who have said we're not really joined, we're not body, what does this really portend?
Dibal, I think we need to draw scenarios here to get an understanding of the confusion, opportunism, and lack of direction that our country find our power elite engulfed in. First, we have the scenario of a perfect scenario of power sharing, which normally comes after protracted conflicts and negotiations. And we have seen countries come to those situations, and therefore we have what you'd call a government of national unity. And such governments of national unity, such a government of national unity is not new to us. We had it in 2008 to 2013.
Yes.
And it came after a conflict that we had. And it also occurred within the framework of our constitution, which was semi-presidential. In other words, we are neither parliamentary nor presidential. And that is the situation where South Africa found itself when Ramaphosa lost the popularity that he needed to make a government by using his own party alone.
Yes.
He reached out to the other side, something that South Africa may not recover from after what has happened. It's just a question of watching and seeing how the future is going to pan out, because he messed. Now, here, we don't have a situation where we are in conflict. We had elections, and the two sides of the government were elected. And our scenario, which now brings us to scenario 2, is that of a post-election scenario where we have a government in sitting and where we have an opposition in place. Both are perfectly in place, and they are supposed to be doing what they are supposed to do. Then the population itself rises up against the government and the opposition for not doing what they need to do.
Yes.
So it's a completely new scenario that we've not witnessed before. And it required a specific response. But what is the response of our elite? Our elite started by basically assuming that we are where we are because we have not talked, which is not true. We are not where we are because we've not talked. And therefore the call for dialogue had very familiar echoes with the dialogue we have had in the past in Serena, in the Bomas of Kenya, and so on. And that's what really iked the young people, that you cannot take us through the same pipeline that you have been going through before. That this is not about dialogue. It's about acting and fulfilling what need to be done. And therefore, you find that the elite are still caught up in their own kind of politics. And our politics is that politics of entrepreneurship. You want to take advantage of every position to line up either your pockets or to prop up your power. And in that regard, the whole idea about who should be in the cabinet and who should not be in the cabinet is essentially diversionary. It does not deal with the problem we are dealing with. I've said this before. Your heart is burning. You have been very angry with rats because they have been messing up your lives. So you stop putting the fire, off the fire from your heart.
Burn the house.
Burning hearts and start chasing rats. That's essentially what we are doing in this debate about the cabinet. President Ruto should appoint a whole cabinet by himself. Failure to that is now forcing a coalition government, which is not necessary. You're literally forcing it. It's not necessary. Because you were elected within a specific mandate. We have not entered a state of emergency. We have not been at war at all. We have not been at war. I've woken up every day to go and do what I normally do. Gen Zs don't come to where I am. So I still wake up to go to my office, even on Tuesday, because I'm not in the city center. So we have not being in the state of war means that we have a constitution to which we have sworn. And President Ruto sworn to protect the constitution. And the constitution gives us two governments. One in power, which is his, the executive, occupying the executive. The other one is the government in waiting, which is in parliament, and which we are now debating whether we should reform it. to be able to do its work very well, which you call opposition. And our constitution is very clear about that. So the moment you start muddling all those things up, you're confusing our constitution. The Gen Z have not constituted themselves as an alternative power. They have not constituted themselves as an alternative, political force. What they are putting onto the table is the vision about the future, which both the opposition and the government need to take into account. Meaning, they are calling for a new moral order. And this moral order is not challenging our institution. At no point have they challenged any of the existing institutions. Oh, we want you to abolish this. Oh, we want you to abolish. No, they have not done that. They have simply called for a moral order. Take, for example, this idea of occupying, as the word occupy, meaning going there to demonstrate, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. What was the debate behind it and why occupy? It's about corruption. It's, the debate behind it is about corruption. Now, why are you occupying this and this other place? Because of corruption or mismanagement of our resources. And what is the basis of this argument? We are not able to pay our foreign debts because we are extravagant. We are too careless about our funding, and therefore we are not able to pay our debt or are struggling to pay our debts because we have mismanaged ourselves. So can we manage ourselves better, put the financial bill aside, and then we manage our resources? Those people with watches, they live within their means. Those people with cars, they live within their means. Those people with this. And can we begin, this is a debate that was beginning, can we begin to cut the income of certain people and nationalize it? Because I don't see the reason why a member of parliament should have more salary than a doctor in this country. Given that to go to medical school here, you have to have a straight A. And this has happened over generations. You have to have a straight A, and you have to stay for more than 4 years training, and after that you have to go to internship and all that pays. For what?
6 years.
You have to go for 6 years in training only to be in the streets. And somebody who had a D or a C in class is now here telling you what to do. I mean, we have to build a community, a society of meritocracy. This is what the Gen Zs are saying. It's about a vision. It's not a replacement of a political order. So why do we need dialogue between the opposition and the government? We don't need it. What is needed is basically the opposition, which is, to me, the failure. We are where we are because our political leadership in the opposition side did not put Ruto to check. If they had constituted a responsible, non-entrepreneurial opposition, the finance bill would not even have seen a day in parliament. President Ruto would not even have had the courage to put it in parliament. But because the opposition failed, this is where we find ourselves in. So now, on top of a failed opposition, you now take it again and you want to merge it with the government? We should share power. Basically, it is muddling things up more than they have been muddled before. So what is the way out? We need to look at this moment as a moment to reflect on the future of our nation across generations. If we are capable of that, and I believe we are looking for a new moral order. A moral order where our country does not appear in the international reports, whether reports of international Transparency International or other groups, as the most corrupt or the most this. We also don't want to appear in records as people who are unable to pay their debts because we are stashing money in foreign accounts and we are carrying money in bags, in planes, and so on. We don't want to also be a people who are not able to provide opportunities for their kids in schools because we have about we are now talking about over 400 bursaries that are paid for by Treasury. And I think that is what Madam Pasaris was referring to. Because we have a system of political entrepreneurship where MCA want to have bursary MP want to have bursaries, women rep want to have bursaries, all MPs have bursaries.
Thank you.
All governors have bursaries. So what do we want? We don't have to have dialogue. We don't have to have a cabinet of national unity. We just need to put our country in order.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
Dr. Kananja.
Okay.
Yeah, just a follow-up in terms of putting the government in order. Dibal, I think as a country we are striving to live within our means, and it's important for us to live within our means. Yes. But we can't live within our means when we're busy eating our means of production. Yep. There will be nothing left. And it is hard for us to make an argument to citizens in living within our means with the kind of our bloated government that we need to actually renegotiate. Mm-hmm. We have one of the largest governments on the face of the world. And when I say one of the largest governments, I mean a lot of positions at the county level that are not necessary. Mm-hmm. And that is where runaway corruption is so rampant. It's unbelievable, Mm-hmm. Two, some of us in principle, if there a study that's been done to show that actually CDF fundamentally is making a lot of difference. We were meant to have added, I think, CDF 30 million per constituency in this finance bill. Mm-hmm. In my assessment, and based on the studies that we undertake, CDF is not making a fundamental impact when it comes to the macroeconomics of this country. It's actually sucking resources, most of which is actually wasted. And only a small percentage goes towards building a classroom or two. If we were to make a policy, as legislators, those are some of the things that actually, if they care about this country, they should move towards scrapping, because it has encouraged members of parliament to make arguments for handouts and handouts. Members of parliament are supposed to build schools or pay school fees for the constituents. That is not their work. Their work is to legislate. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that should be scrapped. Four, as we move to the next phase, and it's true that the argument has not exactly been about elite pacting. But elite pacting, we need to have a more comprehensive approach to it in a way in which is also going to change the perceptions of the citizens, so that it is not seen as having nusumkate per se, but it's going to be seen as these changes are fundamental and they're geared towards not just pacifying the angst, but actually making fundamental difference in the lives of Kenyans. Perhaps to make a final point that Prof, I think, alluded to with regard to meritocracy. How can you tell your daughter or your son, who is working very hard in school, when somebody is priding himself, herself, that even though I got a D or an E, look at my position now. And it's not because he or she has been running business and worked hard. No, because they may have been given a position they actually haven't earned. It's extremely discouraging for us to look into the eyes of our daughters and our sons to tell them, go to school and work hard.
Yes.
Well, but it flies in the face of what, the entrepreneur Robert Kiyosaki says, that, it's not necessarily that when you get A's that then you can actually occupy these prime jobs. It's the C's and the D's will actually employ the A's. That is a notion which is actually going. I'm just saying this with my tongue firmly in cheek, because when you speak about the new realities, that could be the new reality also that we're in as well.
Before possibly Dr. Bongi comes in, on the point he is making, it is at the heart of our existence as a nation, because we wake up every day to work. It is true, and we have been told, when we go to hire, because we are employers where we are, when we go to hire, sometimes you look at two things. You look at the grade, if it's A, and also you look at the character of the person you are hiring. So sometimes you may choose a B over A, but at no time will you choose as a D or an E over A. Those are the things we're talking about, that a cabinet minister had a D, and in this country where we are now 56 million, there are doctors who have no jobs. There are engineers who are selling pineapples.
Some of the doctors have died by suicide.
And some doctors are committing suicide instead of helping people not to commit suicide. They themselves are committing suicide. So the Kenyan situation is not open to jokes. This is a situation which is not open to jokes. it is very serious because if we are really into the business of building a nation,
yes,
we must be serious about building a nation. If we are into the business of destroying a nation, then let's come out clean and say we are destroying this nation. Because as Dr. Kaneje is asking, what am I going to tell my daughter? That I want you to do medicine because, why should she do medicine? Why should I tell my daughter that she should work hard in school? Because apparently you don't have to work hard in this country. You just need to be a sycophant and train to be yourself to be a goon, to be hired, and then you earn every day 10,000 for being a goon to distract people who are in a serious discourse about the future of this nation. So this is where we needed to emphasize this point, because we can make a joke, and we'll always make a joke as Kenyans, and we make jokes at our own expense.
Indeed.
It is the question of meritocracy is at the heart of this. We are hired ourselves as professors. You hired somebody to sit down and you are doing something for somebody, and you wonder, am I a Kenyan citizen? And I have worked in this situation in South Africa and Wales, where somebody had to be hired because I am not eligible as a non-citizen to attend certain meetings. So he attended on my behalf and come and brief me. I'm now beginning to have the same feeling that you need to belong to a certain group in order to be a citizen in this country. And if you don't, then somebody has to be hired to look after you. We need to go back to meritocracy if we are serious on building the nation.
Right. We just a few minutes to short break. Let's hear from
that's
you.
fine.
Yes.
You know, Deepal, the reason why our leaders seem to be putting off fire using petrol in this crisis, I don't know whether that is what is being depicted by that cartoon, is perhaps because they have not unbundled or debunked the crisis in our midst very well. And they are seeing it through the prism of ethnicity and politics, as it were, which are the two main causes of our nation today. So perhaps the best thing is we need to begin to debunk this crisis that has been brought to our doorsteps by our own children. This crisis did not come because our former Prime Minister was not in government. Please. This crisis did not come because the opposition was not in government. This crisis did not come because the opposition and the government were fighting in the yesteryears. No. It came because the young generation have actually realized that there is a direction our country is taking that does not work for them, does not work for the good of this country. So they are saying, wait a minute, let's stop here and let's solve the problems that have brought us here. These young people are talking about lack of employment and lack of opportunities. They are talking about a largely non-functional education and health sector. They are talking about what Professor Kawanja is calling meritocracy in the way we do things in our nation, where somebody may not have an A, somebody may have a C, but he can competently execute himself or herself in certain situations until you convince people that you are capable of doing what you have applied for. They're talking about equity. They're talking about fairness. They're talking about justice. Now, the question then will be, how have our leaders read this situation? Let's, for example, begin with the Honorable Prime Minister, a man we very highly respect. He has actually made his contribution in the politics of this country, and the history of Kenya will never be complete without the name of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, very experienced. But then the direction that things have taken defies the kind of history that our former Prime Minister represents largely. For example, he has been negotiating with different governments at different times. And he has taken an image of being a savior of collapsing regimes. That's not what we are dealing with now. If he goes to government right now, he will actually carry the sins of this government, just like he did with the sins of Uhuru's government. Yeah. I think that is the perspective where the president is coming from, looking for somebody to carry the sins. Because if, for example, the Prime Minister chooses somebody who is going to head the Ministry of Finance, we will heap all our complaints on the Ministry of Finance, and they will be on the shoulders of our former Prime Minister. I do not think whether that is something...
and that is the likelihood that we're facing, yeah? That we're going to have someone from those sides going to the Ministry of Finance as well at the end of the day. Interesting. We want to take a short break right now, but also when we come back, you would need to see what is on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Remember also, they were holding protests yesterday, and there's a very interesting headline there and also a very interesting picture there. It says a corruption shield, as you can see it. And this is a corruption shield where we have security condoning off the presence of Parliament yesterday, where the Gen Zs wanted to occupy yesterday. Corruption shield, and all these voices that are rising from Africa, beginning with Kenya, which is now spreading across Africa, is in light of the Gen Zs realizing that particular adage that we have from the African proverbs, and saying that we have not inherited this earth from our ancestors, but we've borrowed it from our children. And our children, they want to make sure that the world and the earth itself is remaining intact, so that they may occupy it when we've left. And this is the reality they don't want, to be living with the reality that they will be paying for debt they have not even accrued themselves, that will be saddled on their backs, that we have a broken political system that they will inherit. So this is what they're agitating. They want a future where taxes are not going to be punitive as they are